This thing is off, and I'm going to carefully clean this gasket in here because I do not want to damage the gasket. I want to reuse it. I may have gaskets to fit that, and I may not. I don't know, but I don't want to have to hunt any down online, so I'm just going to be careful and try not to damage that gasket. And so looks like there's another gasket. I guess I had two of them on there, so I'll carefully get the dirt off of this gasket and get that one off of there as well. And then let's go ahead and blow some air on this. Get that carburetor off of there, blow some air on this thing and clean it off. Before I take the carburetor off, it's easier to open up this sediment bolt right here while it's still mounted on there, so I'm going to do that first. That's just your 10mm wrench on the bottom. We'll take that off of there. There, look here, it's coming off. It's not tight. Sometimes they're really tight. Got the fuel line off over here, and slide this out. Lift this rod out of there, and this spring, have to bend the spring a little bit to get it off, but it's easier to do it with the pliers. I'm going to go ahead and get that off of there. I got a flat screwdriver. I apologize for the background noise, but it's getting pretty hot and I'm sweating in this garage. I turned the fan on, and anyway, on this screwdriver I flattened down the sides on the grinder and sharpened the point, the tip of it, just so that it fits. It just does fit inside the jet on most of these small engine carburetors that are down in a hole like that. It just does fit in there, and I'm going to stick it in there and break that jet loose and get it out of there. Here it is, came out of the hole, sticking on the end of the screwdriver there. And I can see through the hole inside of it. I can see through it, so that's a good sign. It's probably dirty, has a film on it, but it's at least it's not clogged up. So I'll clean that out with some air. There's another tube inside there. Sometimes it comes out, sometimes it doesn't. And you have to look down inside there. It comes up inside the throat there a little bit. You see a brass tube. It does come up inside the throat there in the bottom. I don't know if we can focus in on that or not. Maybe not. But sometimes you can mash a screwdriver in there on top of it and push it out. And sometimes you can't. Sometimes you gotta just stick an easy out or a screw, like a drywall screw point in there, and sometimes that'll pull it out. But usually you don't have to mess with that. But if you're going to do a complete rebuild, that is something you want to pull out and make sure that all of the holes in it. It's a tube about 1 inch long, and it's got some holes going through the side. You want to make sure all that's clean. So anyway, the most important thing is getting this main jet clean. I mean, unless that tube has a problem, but it very rarely does. This usually has a problem here, this one that we just took out, and this one underneath here. We're going to get this out next, that one under that. Take this screw out and then pull this thing out, lift it up with a screwdriver and pop it out of there. There's a jet in there. Okay, I got that little screw out. This is also an idle speed stop. Goes behind this. It's your idle speed stop. It goes up against that. It goes through this. Anyway, I'm going to stick the screwdriver under the edge of this and pop it out. Sorry I don't have a tripod down here where I could do this. Okay, I lifted that up with the edge of the screwdriver right here, that piece. I lifted that up, popped it loose. Now I'm just going to grab it with my fingertips and pull it off of there. Okay, I pulled this off. This has a jet in it, and it is clogged up, and this engine was not going to run right without cleaning that out. Trying to do this with one hand while I got sweat dripping in my glasses is not easy. If you see the tip of that wire, I'm getting through that hole there. Now that the wire goes through it, I can run some spray through that and clean that hole out a little bit more. Okay, I just sprayed that, got it cleaned out. Now there is a very small O-ring right here on the tip of this, a very small one. You gotta make sure that's not broken. If it is, if that's broken, then you gotta try to find an O-ring to fit that and replace it. Now the upper inside of this float bowl area is perfectly clean. I see no reason to completely disassemble this carburetor and clean everything. The float bowl was bad. We're going to clean that, and then the jet was clean. So that's, I mean, it wasn't clean, but it was not clogged up. So that's all a good sign. There's a lot of dirt on the outside, but I'm not worried about looks right now. So I'm just going to run some spray through it and some air through the main passages. That little plastic jet that I showed you, not the metal one out of the bottom, but the one I put that wire through it to clean it, that goes in this hole here, goes where my thumb is, goes in that hole. Okay, that lets fuel in through this hole here. I mean air through that hole there, and it mixes with the idle fuel. So we're going to run some air and some brake cleaner or carb cleaner, whatever, through that hole and make sure that that's clean. And it comes out of that hole, goes through that jet, and then into another hole that's down in the bottom. Comes out that hole on the side there, it goes through that little jet, and then in that bottom hole. So we're going to clean that up. This idle mixture screw has a limiter cap on it. I'm not going to take it off. In order to get that off, that's glued in with hot glue, and so you have to heat that up to take that off. You have to heat it up and soften up the hot glue to get that off of there. But I'm not going to mess with that unless it doesn't run good when I'm done. We'll just run some spray through there. Hopefully that'll be okay. If you do need that little bitty O-ring that goes on there, on that little plastic jet, you can get one of these kits. It's got the O-rings, the bowl gasket, and it's got the seals for the shut off, and it's got your screw for your gasket for your little screw on the bottom. And it's got that little button. You see it underneath that blue gasket. That's an unopened kit there. I'm trying to shake that off so you can see the number on this. There's the number to this Honda kit, and it fits most small engine Honda carburetors. This kit's open, and I'm gonna get the gasket out of this and use it. The bowl gasket I want off of this kit. That one's already open. That's a different one. We might be heading for a whole rebuild on this stupid thing. I took this sediment bowl off, and it was crusty in there, and the gasket is pretty rough, so I'm going on and clean that up and put the new gasket in there, and screw the sediment bowl back on it. Then the only thing left is to take this top off, or this shut off, where that little button gasket is in there. Clean that up. Hopefully we can stick that gasket back in so I don't have to open up a new kit. Now the screws on this top for this fuel shutoff are very tiny and they look like a number 1 Phillips screwdriver. Do not use a number 1. It's too small, you'll strip the hole out. That is a number 2 screwdriver. Number 2 means it's 1/4 inch across here. It's a standard screwdriver size. Standard size is your number 2 Phillips screwdriver. Everything looks pretty clean in here, so I'm going to put it back together with that same old gasket. Just going to put this plastic top back in there. That goes in there like so. And then a little spring washer, and then the cap. Cap can go on 2 different ways, but only one way is right. Goes on this way. Goes on this way, not this way. I'm going to start putting this back together. I got to clean all this powdery, sticky stuff off of this float and this float bowl. I've seen people on YouTube use Q-tips with carburetor cleaner on that. That's a good idea. I don't have any in here. I'm just going to use paper towels and soaked with cleaner and wipe this brown stuff off of this all the way around. And it's a good idea to take this needle off when you do that. It just slides off of there. It's got a spring on it. Set that aside so you don't lose it. Okay, I cleaned this off about as good as I'm going to get it here in the shop without putting this in the ultrasonic cleaner and going through all that, making it look pretty. The gasoline is not going to wash that residue off of there. It's not going to clog anything up. It'll be there if I ever have to take this apart and do this carburetor again. That same dirt will still be there. But I'm going to go ahead and put this back together. My bowl gasket seems to be just slightly tight. I think I'm going to stretch it out with my fingers just a little bit, not too much, so that it'll fit in that groove a little better before I put that bowl back on there. I still got to clean this bowl. Look at that, it's a mess. I'll clean this out. I cleaned that bowl, put it back on. I did not tighten the screw completely tight because I want to rotate this. After I install the carburetor, I want to rotate it to where this drain plug is accessible from the outside, easily accessible from any place that I can get at it when everything's put together. And after I rotate it to that position, then I'll tighten this bottom screw. Putting it back together, I got my little spring on this throttle thing, and I got my throttle rod on there. Slide this back in there close enough to where I can work my fuel line into position, get that on. Need 2 hands for that. Got my gasket on in the direction it needs to go. To figure out how that goes, you'll match it up with this one on here and here. Just match up your everything about the gasket, make sure that it's going on the same way. This thing here, this choke lever, just it rides on this pin right here, and then it's got this little pin on it here that goes where my thumb is. That little pin goes inside this slot here on the choke. That's your choke there. And then you got to make sure that both of these levers, the choke lever, make sure it's facing out, and make sure your fuel shutoff lever, make sure it's facing out, so that those levers will go inside these slots here when you put this on. And when you put this on, this plastic piece, make sure your breather tube goes in your valve cover the way it's supposed to. Make sure that's not leaking, because that will have an effect on the way your engine runs as well. Okay, it's time to tighten this thing down and put it back together. Now we want to rotate this bowl and make sure that it is in a position, which it is, where I can get at the drain hole on that to let the fuel out of it when the machine is not going to be used for a little while. Then we go on ahead and tighten this bottom screw down. Not real tight, just snug it down pretty good so it doesn't vibrate off of there. These are all tight, this screw's tight, everything is ready. Put the air filter back on. Should be ready to put some gas in it and start it up. I don't like the way this pull cord is hanging out a little bit. I'll have to look into that maybe. Okay, this is real time, moment of truth. I did put some gas in there, about quarter tank maybe. Turn the ignition on. This thing has not been started in a number of years. Put the gas on. We'll leave the choke on momentarily. It is warm out. It's about, I don't know what temperature is now, probably 85. Let the carburetor fill up there and I'll look at the gas. I mean the temperature is 80 right now on my phone in my area. Okay, I'm hoping that those tines that spin around under there are not going to hit the concrete. But it should be ready to start. I can turn the idle speed back down a little bit. It's that little plastic screw that was over that plastic jet on the side of the carburetor. I'll adjust that later. Alright, thanks for watching.